Hi there, my name is Alyce Weikel. I am currently an AP Access Spanish teacher for Cincinnati Public Schools here in Ohio. Today I'm going to be chatting about the use of zero dialogue videos in our world language classrooms as a way to promote communication. So today's plan, I am going to run through 9 different activities tied to 9 sample videos. I'm just going to use screenshots of the videos to save us all some time. I have linked to all of the 9 videos that I have referenced at the end of this slideshow. I'm also going to include for you some student work samples so you can see how these activities work in action. Again, I'm trying to be very mindful of everyone's time. So feel free to rewind and go back and look it apart if perhaps I go a little too quickly through something. And again, I've included my contact info at the end. So if you have any questions, if I can help with anything, if you'd like to collaborate on anything, by all means, reach out. So the concept behind the use of zero dialogue videos is to capitalize on our students' interest in YouTube, TikTok, all things visual at this point. There are some research-based items regarding the use of zero dialogue videos. I've referenced a couple people here. I think most notably is the work of Kim from 2014, who studied the use of zero dialogue or silent video clips with English language learners in South Korea and found that there was actually higher student engagement and more grammatical growth in the students that use those videos. And then also Baltova sort of had previously set this up 20 years before, saying that there seemed to be more attentional advantages and then some resulting language growth as well with the zero dialogue videos. For me, what I find is really great about using zero dialogue videos is that you can use them across all levels. You can also use them across languages. So you can easily collaborate with a colleague of a different world language using the same video and basically the same activity, just resulting in a different target language. Also, just using a video where students can maybe focus on the visuals versus trying to look at the visuals and listen to a target language can also be very useful for students. So quickly, how to find videos. Of course, you're going to find all sorts of things on YouTube. A lot of times little videos come up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you may be wandering around the internet, social media wise. Even a GIF could work for this sort of thing. Just a short little 2 or 3 second silent image that moves would be useful for a zero dialogue sort of activity. Of course, you could have students create their own. They might have fun coming up with a short little clip of them in a silent movie sort of thing. You can also create your own as well using things like Clip-O-Matic, Flipgrid, any recording software, basically. This third bullet point seems pretty obvious, but sometimes I have to remind myself that I can make any video clip I would like silent. So I can find a great authentic resource in the target language and simply use it without the audio, perhaps as a introductory activity, some sort of anticipatory set before students actually hear the language. So if you find a video you love and it's perhaps in another language, sometimes you might find a great commercial from Germany and you teach French, and so using the German language track would not be super helpful. You can just mute that. Again, I've included a list of the videos that I'm going to reference today in the online handout. So again, it's at the end of this slideshow. So the activities we're going to be discussing today can be mixed and matched. You can tailor them to get written or spoken output from your students or both. Typically, with the same video clip, I would partner multiple activities together. Maybe use one as a preview, one during the viewing the first time of the video, view the video a second time, and do another activity. Again, you can kind of mix and match to whatever your needs may be without having to introduce new stimulus. So you can use the same video multiple ways. And again, my advice would be to try to minimize instruction as much as possible and just let students sort of share whatever vocabulary and grammar they can come up with, whatever words, strings of words, phrases, sentences tied to the video that you're viewing. So let's hop on in. Again, we're going to go through 9 activities total, and my plan is to go through them relatively quickly to preserve our time and make sure that you can take advantage of all of the great other opportunities available through this conference. So the first activity is the pretty standard movie talk or teacher narrate in question. In this case, the teacher takes center stage with the video, talking through specific items, whatever your target grammar or vocabulary item is, a lot of circling, a lot of repetition. You can also question students or the entire class, just a lot of repetition. For instance, if it's a video with one character, you could start with, is it a man or a woman? It's a man, and then kind of circle back, it's a man. Is it a man or a woman? It's a man, just to kind of reinforce those very basic vocabulary items. As we go through these different activities today, I am working in some items that work for our virtual instruction or hybrid instruction as well. The movie talk or the teacher narrate works really well in a virtual environment as well. You can share the video through your LMS, through your Google Meet, through Zoom, however you're conducting class. And again, the audio then would be your voice. So rather than having a video playing with a soundtrack with some talking and then you talking over it, it kind of keeps things a little more streamlined with the virtual environment. And then you can have students respond to your narrations via chat with a poll with some sort of assignment on Google Forms or GoFormative. You could use Mentimeter for a poll, that sort of thing, just to sort of reinforce those very basic items. So the first sample video is a short film called Alma. Here's just a screenshot from it. Again, I'm not going to be showing clips today just to sort of keep our time going and also to maximize my ability to be able to upload this to the conference. So Alma is just a short video with a little girl. And again, you could sort of circle through, is it a girl or a boy? Is it a girl or a boy? And so those really basic vocabulary items with lower level classes. And then of course, even in an upper level class, you could get a lot more detailed. You could work in things about, perhaps narrate the entire story in the past tense or in the future tense or however, whatever grammar item you may be focusing on. And again, the same video you could use across multiple levels. So perhaps in a very low level class, in a novice class, perhaps a Spanish 1, French 1, German 1, you could use this for weather. From just a screenshot, you can see there's some snow. So you could say, it is cold. And then you could ask them, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it cold? And then perhaps step it up to, it's very cold, those sorts of things, just to get students sort of engaging with what you're saying and tying it to the visual media. Our next activity, I've nicknamed Quick ID. This one is great for just maybe the beginning of class, as a warm-up, as a preview of an activity, whatever it may be. Great for like just a quick formative check-in, especially for vocabulary. So you just have students identify maybe what they see. They could list colors, items that they see, characters, maybe verbs related to the different actions that are visible in the video. And again, for quick ID, we're typically looking at words or phrases, not necessarily full sentences. You could certainly have students build to a full sentence. So perhaps the first viewing of the Zero Dialogue video, they write down some words, and then on the next viewing, you try to get them to move towards phrases or towards sentences. And again, for our virtual tie-in, if we're doing a quick ID as sort of a brainstorm, as we would perhaps in the classroom, like, hey, let's just see what words we can come up with that deal with these videos, or this video that we're watching today. You can do that online pretty easily in chat. You can open a Jamboard, some other tool to just get students sharing out ideas. They can, of course, unmute and just speak items that they see. You could also have them type a list as part of a Google form or GoFormative assignment. So perhaps if it's your first warm-up item, it's just at the top of their digital assignment, list 5 words that have to do with the short video clip we're going to watch, and then you can move on from there. So Quick ID is just a great way to do sort of a formative check-in, especially maybe on a Monday, after a break, after you've spent a few days on a set of vocabulary, just sort of checking in to see what students know pretty quickly off the top of their head. I like pretty simple videos for a quick ID. Sometimes if you choose a video, I've done this, that's a little more detailed or there's lots of things going on, students want to try to identify everything and then they're like, well, stop it, rewind it, I want to see that part again. And they get bogged down in trying to identify everything. And again, it's just about what can you give me quickly? What can you kind of provide with just a quick viewing? So even a screenshot like this or freeze frame of the video could be great. So for instance, there's a lot of Simon's cat, different videos, the cat doing different things. Here, like this screenshot, this freeze frame from the clip, you could use for perhaps house vocabulary, and students could just provide you the words for window, for chair, for table, for vase, flowers, whatever they can come up with. Again, further on, there is the cat. So if you're doing animal vocab or reviewing animal vocab, just kind of having students come up with what they can. And again, you could even just do colors. So they see if they could come up with black and white here. With Quick ID, it's really pretty minimal instruction from the teacher. It's, hey, what can you come up with in the target language today dealing with this visual media? And then you can build on with the same video, pursuing another activity, or just move on to something else. Moving us along to activity 3. Again, right now, a lot of us are pretty familiar with virtual methods of sharing videos and getting feedback from students. So PlayPosit and Edpuzzle are 2 of the strongest websites for this. I used to be more of a PlayPosit fan, and now I've kind of become more of an Edpuzzle fan. So if you haven't worked with these, you might just kind of play around with both of them and see which one works better for you and better for your students. Again, this can be just like a high-tech version of a movie talk, so that you could just possibly pop in questions every once in a while and say, is it a man or a woman? Is it AM or PM? Is it hot or is it cold? Whatever sort of thing you may be working with vocabulary wise. Again, it works great in person, especially right now. Edpuzzle has the live version where you can play the video within the classroom and then students are answering the questions on their own screen. You can do that in a virtual environment as well. And it also works great asynchronously, especially Edpuzzle, because students can just pop in there, do the assignment. You can embed an Edpuzzle activity right into a Go formative if you're using that as a instruction method. Again, it could be questions as far as comprehension. You could ask them to predict. You could maybe pop in a quick opinion question. What do you think of the video so far? What do you think is going to happen next? Also great to use play, pause it, and Edpuzzle for some verb formation or vocabulary uses. So getting more to those communicative items of describing what is happening in the video. Typically, when I use Edpuzzle or Play Pause It with a zero dialogue video, I like to preview the video with the students first. So perhaps tying in another one of the activities today that I've chatted about. Perhaps just simply let's watch this video. And then now we have the Edpuzzle as a second viewing. That way students can really focus on, during the first viewing, just trying to get broad strokes, generally what's happening. And then once they're to the second viewing as part of that activity on either Play Pause It or Edpuzzle, they can really focus then on producing the target language. So one video that I love to use a lot is silent video. It's called The Note. I'm going to reference this video again later. Right here I have some screenshots from a play pause it activity that I did a few years ago with a Spanish 2 class. We were working with the preterite and the imperfect. So you can see here we have describe what happened, and then a couple just fill in the blanks where they would have to conjugate the verb or perhaps choose the conjugation if it's multiple choice. And then on the bottom left there, what happened, and then in your opinion, what is going to happen. So we're kind of mixing tenses, having students interact with the language, and then a lot of freedom as to what a correct answer could be. Again, you can embed all kinds of items. With Edpuzzle, you can also embed just a note, just a comment, so you can kind of just draw students' attention to something, which is great for, say, a cultural item. You might just, pause the video at a certain point and like notice that the phone number is longer than ours, or look at how this address is listed, or whatever sorts of little cultural things may pop up in the video that you're using. Our fourth activity of our 9 we're going to discuss today, I've called Next Scene. This is basically a predictive activity. So you can do this with an entire video clip, or you could use part of a video clip, stop it, and then encourage students to come up with what they think is going to happen next. And then view the video to its final and see who was right, who was kind of close, whatever it may be. So really you can use it as an interruption to a video clip and then see the ending, or show an entire video clip and then have students build this. Again, this works very well virtually. Students can share their predictions in the chat. They can write it in whatever sort of digital assignment you're using. They could share or maybe vote on answers on Mentimeter. So perhaps you come up with 3 possibilities and have students vote. You could have them come up with answers and share them in Mentimeter or Jamboard or any other number of items online. Some extensions to this, you could perhaps display everyone's ideas and have students read them and vote them. So perhaps the end of class one day, you have them write their predictions, and so then you could have them prepared for the next day, have a lot of input then of different versions of what possibly might happen, and then have students vote on it and then continue from there. You can also shuffle the endings and have different students act them out or read them out, just depending upon what your classroom situation is right now and what sort of students you have. Not all students are willing to step up and act things out, but sometimes they are. So a great video for this one is called Mother Cat Opens Door into Kitten's Face. And it literally is what happens. It's a very short clip. It's about 4 seconds. Again, I have a freeze frame for you here. Mama opens the door. She goes on in, smacks the cat and the baby kitten, in the face with the door. It's very short and sweet. The clip here, which again is linked at the end of this presentation, plays the video a few times. So again, you're going to get a reaction out of students. They're going to be engaged. They're going to be interested in it. But then they can, if they would like, if that's the activity you're choosing, tell you what happens next. So I have some student samples of this activity I did a few years ago when I was teaching middle school, so introductory Spanish 1. So we had students working in groups, and here I just have 3 samples. And again, we're not looking for perfection, of course. We're looking for some proficiency. We're looking for some use of, the grammar or the vocabulary we're using, just expressing themselves in the target language. So for those of you that are not Spanish speakers, the top one says the cat cries a lot because of the door to the face, never enters the house. And again, there's some grammar issues, but it gets the point across. Group B said that the mother cat eats all the food and then went into capital letters to say the kitten is hungry forever. And then group C got a little more creative. They actually tied back to a video that we watched in class when we did chore vocabulary of a little boy named Nico. And in this particular year, I had a group of students who just really latched onto that video and had to work Nico into any and every activity, which works for me. So they have Nico come to the house, he does the chores, he opens the door, etc. So again, these are not all perfect, but they get the point across to get students engaged, and again, they're sharing ideas. And then from there, in that case, in that class, we had these different groups. There were 3 other groups, I believe, so a total of 6. We then voted on what was the best ending and kind of talked about what could happen from there. So we did a next scene. So again, it's just a way to get students sharing out in the target language and in a low pressure sort of way. Our 5th activity is spin and speak. This is a partner activity typically. It can also work with small groups just depending upon the situation you're working with. Right now, if you're in person with social distancing, we have to be a little creative with this sort of thing, but it can totally work. At the bottom here, I've included again our virtual tie-in. This would be a great thing to use those breakout rooms. So you could have students in the breakout room and students in the main room with you. And again, when you have the students broken into groups or partners, you're going to have one person be the first person to watch part of the clip, and the other person has their back to the screen or is in the breakout room if you're virtual and cannot see the clip. So you play however long you think would be appropriate, 10, 15 seconds, however much you want to do. And then the students who have viewed that part of the clip will then describe it to their partner. So they can do that verbally, they could do that written, depending upon how you want to work it. Online, again, you could throw the people then back out to the breakout rooms with their partners and have them discuss. You could have them type in the chat. You could pull everyone back from their isolation booths, as it were, in the breakout rooms, pull everybody back to the main room, have the students who viewed the clip type in the chat what they saw, and then switch. So basically, it's a viewer watches it, describes it, and then they switch roles. So then the person who was described to would then watch the next part of the clip and would describe back. And again, you can break video into just 2 pieces. So each person views once and listens once to the response or to the summary from the viewer. You could do a back and forth several times. It just sort of depends on the clip you're using, on the level of your students, on what your goals are. And again, you're going to get probably a lot of words and phrases in this sort of thing at a lower level as they're describing back, and that's great. Again, you could provide scaffolded vocab. You might even sort of movie talk through the clip that you're showing to the viewer. So you play a 20-second clip and you're highlighting some of the important pieces so that students are seeing that, hearing you give some of those important details in target language so that they can then pass those on to their partner. A fun video for this is one that I think a lot of us have used for reflexive vocabulary or daily routine vocabulary, and that is Mr. Bean is late for the dentist. For those of you who haven't viewed this video, he is in fact getting up late, and so he's going through his daily routine of brushing his hair, brushing his teeth, getting dressed, getting in the car in true Mr. Bean fashion. Mr. Bean's a great resource for these zero dialogue videos since he does not in fact talk. They're always goofy, and sometimes our students are familiar with him and sometimes they're not. And so this is a great spin and speak because there's a lot that goes on, but it also really reinforces the vocabulary of the daily routine. So when you're in that sort of unit, this is a great video to kind of pop in there. And again, you could do spin and speak as perhaps an introductory to the video. And then the second time you run through it, you could do a movie talk to just reinforce those major points so that students, as they've only seen part of the video at that time, can then see the entire clip. Again, moving along, I'm trying, as I said, to get through as many items as I can as quickly as I can to preserve your time. Activity 6 is really more of an umbrella of activities. So using screenshots, there's lots of ways we could use screenshots to reinforce our vocabulary and grammar concepts and to get students communicating. So you can create screenshots of key points in the video. There's a Chrome extension that will automatically do screenshots from YouTube quite quickly when you use that. You can use an Microsoft has Snip and Sketch. You can just use the screenshot functionality of your computer. And again, it's kind of up to you as to where you want to take those screenshots, depending upon what your goals are with the video. Screenshots are great for like an anticipatory set to just show students maybe 5 or 6 little freeze frames and perhaps get them to build what they think the story is going to look like. It's also great after viewing the video for the review of events for reinforcement of perhaps vocabulary or grammar or whatever it may be. This also works great virtually. You can put those screenshots into slides, into a GoFormative. You can have students drag and drop them. You can put them on a Jamboard. You can do all sorts of things with the same screenshots. So some ideas, again, that you could use, and again, this is more of an umbrella idea because screenshots can be used in a bunch of different ways. You could have students put them in a sequence and then write a description, so they're showing that they understood the flow of the video as well as being able to describe the plot in the target language. You can use this as a verbal activity where you speak and the students are then listening and having to perhaps point to a picture, choose the correct picture, hold up the picture if you've printed them out for them, whatever it may be. You could play a game like Fly Swatter, something to that effect as a teacher describes the scene. And again, there are virtual options for Fly Swatter and some of those other kind of standard world language games that we've had to reinvent this year. Screenshots, again, are just a great way, like I think, to introduce items. So, for instance, this video, Justino, was the 2015 Spanish Christmas Lottery ad, and it's quite cute. Spanish teachers mostly probably have seen this. One of the ways that I worked with this just this past winter with my Spanish 3 students was after viewing it one day in a virtual class, the next day, students' warm up was a slideshow. They each had their own copy of the slides, and we had a number of different activities in that slideshow. On this slide, they were given 5 screenshots of important moments from the video, and they were to put them in order and then give me their opinion on the story or on the video. Again, an extension to this, depending on time, depending on your goals, you could then have students create a description in the target language of each picture. So they could be, again, communicating to you a bit more in the target language. For me that day, this was just sort of a reminder of what the video had been as we had other activities we were working on with it. Another way that I've used screenshots, again with that same video, this was in person a few years ago with my middle school class, my 8th graders that year, where they were each given just a handful of screenshots. So I printed out about 8 different screenshots, and each group got 2 or 3, and they had to create sentences just to demonstrate, basic vocabulary. And they had a lot of freedom as to how they wanted to describe it. So they could say exactly what was happening. They could just say something like what he was wearing, where he was, really wide open. Just basically give me a sentence inspired by this picture. So as you can see here, there's 3 samples on the left. It says the man works at night. It's boring work. No. And again, word order is a little off, but it gets the point across. Great proficiency. In the middle in the green, Justino eats with the mannequins in the factory. He plays to spend the time or to pass the hours. And on the right, the woman on the bus sleeps on Justino. It's night. And then to go to the factory. So again, all 3 proficient, get their point across, and kind of just very general directions for me. Take your screenshots with your partner in your group, come up with a sentence inspired by the screenshot. So it could be an exact description. It could be something a little more loosey-goosey with it. Another sample with screenshots, this actually I used this past week with my Spanish 3 students here in Cincinnati Public. We used that video, the note again, which I referenced earlier. This was an anticipatory activity. I placed 5 screenshots onto a slide in Google Slides, saved it as an image, and then imported it into GoFormative, as we're using GoFormative for a lot of our activities, just so it's sort of one-stop shopping. And our LMS is not necessarily super friendly to our goals for our class. So then this was done in class where I would read a sentence in Spanish and students had to choose the picture that I was referencing. So they got 5 key points or 5 plot moments from the video before viewing it, heard those descriptions in Spanish, answered in the GoFormative. We would run back through and just check our answers for those of us that were in class. And then we would actually watch the video. And during the video, I then would pull in a movie talk and use those same sentences and others to reinforce the major plot points. So again, as I've mentioned a few times, a lot of these zero dialogue activities mix and match together super well. So here I could use screenshots as an introduction, as a preview. During viewing of the video, that's about a 4-minute video, I did just a very basic movie talk, reinforcing with these same 5 sentences from our screenshot activity. And then in this activity, students ultimately then use that same video in an ed puzzle that was embedded in our GoFormative to really reinforce the past tense, which is what we've been reviewing. All right, 3 more activities for you. Activity 7 is CAP activities. CAP activities are based upon learning and output mode. So it's similar to, kind of back in the day when we would say that they're more of an audio learner or a visual learner. It's the same exact sort of idea, but CAP stands for creative, analytical, and practical. And so this ties back to student choice. So rather than dictating exactly what you want a student to do with the video clip that you're using, you can provide them three choices. So you would give them something that was more creative, something that was a little more analytical of the video, and then something that was a little more practical. So maybe some more real world applications, as it were. And again, typically, this is great for giving students a way to select how they want to share their information, how they want to demonstrate their abilities. And it's a great method to use for student choice without actually telling them, here's a creative option, here's the analytical option, here's the practical option. So the example for this one, I'm referencing a little Pixar short called Kit Bull. And so the creative option, students could make a storyboard or a cartoon of the key events and put little descriptions, little captions in the target language. For the more analytical version, they could create a timeline or a concept map in the target language of key events, key plot points. And the more practical item would be to write a summary of the video, but from a different perspective. So not from the main character's perspective, but from someone else's perspective. So again, you give students three choices as to how they want to process the information and share how they want to output. But you don't typically tell them this is a creative option, this is the analytical option, this is the practical option. You just give them the three choices. And again, I referenced the Pixar short Kit Bowl. This is great for lots of different units if you're doing social responsibility, if you're doing really basic animal vocabulary, whatever it may be. And it is rather long. It's about 5 minutes, 6 minutes. So it gives a lot more material that students can reference and use in those CAP activities. Activity 8 is what I call student narrate. So you can do this high tech and low tech. So it works very well in the classroom. And of course, then it works very well virtually as well. So you can have students, if you're doing the low tech version in the classroom, literally just talk to the class, narrate to their partner, whatever it may be. And you can do that through your virtual teaching as well, through a Google Meet or a Zoom. For more high tech options, you can have students record their narration with Screencastify, Loom, Flipgrid, etc. This works really great with solid pictures and with videos. And it's often great with really odd videos or strange videos, just so that students can kind of get a little more creative with it. And again, you could even do it in partners. If there's multiple people in the clip, you could have like different students be different characters and they come up with what's being said. And it's a lot of fun to then maybe circle back and see what how everyone took the story, everyone put the story maybe. For this one, The Dancing Pig is an old silent movie from 1907. It's a very short clip available on YouTube. And again, links are available at the end of this presentation. It is quite weird, as you can see from this screenshot. We do have a dancing pig, in fact, and then a woman as well. So you could assign one student to be the dancing pig, another to be the woman, and have partnerships sort of narrating what's going on and see where it takes students. Again, it's great because there's really no right or wrong answer, right? You're having students narrate, you're having them use the target language. And again, depending upon what your goals are, of course, you can encourage students to just share what they can. Words and phrases are great. If you can move to sentences, awesome. You can provide lots of scaffolding, give them some sentence starters, all those sorts of things to get them narrating the silent video. Our last activity that we're going to discuss today, activity 9, is sentence match. Exactly like it says, students will choose sentences that go with the video clip that you have presented in class. This is great for perhaps a more summative activity, so perhaps you've gone through a couple other activities with the same video clip. It's also great for just perhaps having students just check a quick skill. So having them view the video on their own, choosing the sentences that make the most sense. So kind of a reading comprehension sort of thing where they have to read the sentences and then pick which one matches best with the visual media that you've provided for them. And again, like all of these, it's great for vocabulary reinforcement. So you could have maybe two sentences that are quite similar, but you change out a small item. Perhaps, you change the color of the shirt. The boy wears a blue shirt, the boy wears a green shirt, and they have to choose the correct answer. It's also great for introducing vocabulary in a scaffolded manner. So you can have a sentence that's in the target language, perhaps have one word translated or throw in an emoji or another little image to help students figure out like, oh, that verb must mean whatever. It's great for even introducing a new tense. So if you're perhaps you're moving to the future tense in Spanish, it's quite simple and it looks very similar to the infinitive. So even if students haven't worked with it extensively, they could still read those sentences as they're working to match them with the video and see the basic action in there. They can see the infinitive and therefore see what action you're working with. And so they can actually read the future tense and work with it without 100% necessarily knowing what they're working with. Again, as a virtual tie-in, this works great in your digital methods like GoFormative, Google Form Multiple Selection, where you can then have a list of sentences and students have to choose the ones that make the most sense with the video. You can have them highlight sentences on a document, and again, works very well in person as well, depending upon, again, how you want students to be sharing their information with you. So here's just a screenshot from a GoFormative. Again, the multiple selection option, which is part of the paid membership of GoFormative. So the video here is Knock Knock, and it is kind of a Groundhog Day sort of thing where the same thing keeps happening and the gentleman can't figure out what's going on. And so as you can see in these choices here, they're very similar often. So like here I have the man was sitting on a sofa, the man was sitting on a chair. So very basically the same sentence, but then it just gets down to some vocabulary differences. And again, in this case, we were using the past tense. So you can see the imperfect past tense here. But this would be also a great way to introduce a tense that perhaps students aren't comfortable with, don't know very well. So then students would go through and check the ones that make the most sense to them. I find when doing sentence match that if you have items that are very close to one another, it really makes students read each one instead of just kind of scanning through and looking for words they know, just to kind of help, sorry about that, help identify a little bit better to get to the exact correct answer. And of course, you could give students hints. Perhaps there's 10 sentences and 6 of them are correct. So they can kind of work their way backwards to possibly finding the correct answers. So again, this video is called Knock Knock, also linked here at the end. So again, I know I went through a lot of information very quickly. Thank you so much for your time today. Again, my name is Alyce Weikel, and I work with Cincinnati Public Schools. So if you would like to reach out, if you have any questions, if I can provide any help, I have a whole bunch of Zero Dialogue videos just kind of floating around. I have a list of different things that sometimes when I'm struggling to find something, I can just pop over and find one I haven't used yet. So feel free to email me. I'm also on Twitter. I participate in Lang Chat a lot, so perhaps we've interacted on there. And again, here is the list of the different videos that I referenced throughout this presentation. Do you feel like I'm missing one though? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It does seem that I am missing one, so I'll make sure to add that one in before I upload this presentation to the conference. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you'll be able to use a Zero Dialogue video in your classroom super soon. Have a great day.